Okay, so today I wanted to share her page, Stella.porta at Instagram. For me, it's what else, whatever I'm sharing with you, for me, it's all like, how do you say it? One is hierarchical approach, another is relational approach. Everything is interrelated, everything is connected. For example, the one video that I posted today. So the one video that I posted today was this. Basically the first paragraph from the Stellar Theology in Masonic Astronomy. And can I zoom it more? And the point that is was everything is interrelated. Whether you talk about theology, astrotheology, sovereignty, well, enlightenment, wisdom, all those Tartarian megalithic buildings, philosophy, the love of wisdom to control us, patriarchism, but both sides have suffered matriarchism or patriarchism. The things to control us, these corporate religions, churches, mosques, and to replace the logic, ethic, physics, and what's being spread is fear, superstition, ignorance, dogma, doctrine. So, and the ancient stories, the myths, the Bible, the tales. Jesus is Jezus. Zeus. What's Zeus doing in Jesus' word? Is nature the book of God? Do we have eyes to see? Once you start looking at the pattern, you cannot stop. So, long story short, and then today I came across this, the Zoe Greco. Mysticism aside, will it? Okay, no, it's not zooming. Mysticism aside for a second, even if being psychic is actually just someone who has heightened pattern recognition, strong intuitive inference, emotional attunement, and sensitivity, rapid synthesis of subtle cues, tone, timing, behavior, inconsistencies, imaginative symbolic thinking. And if you have these and you talk to someone who have no idea what psyche is, what mysticism is, so do trust your inner world. Don't believe in, other people because they will just make you doubt yourself. They'll play the card of sensitivity. You are too sensitive. Oh, this is not a pattern. It's just, you are making things in your mind. So, this was one. What else I wanted to share? Yeah, the Stella Porta. That's what I like about her page is dream symbol mirrors. In ancient Mediterranean magic and later Roman rituals, mirrors were used to ketotromancy, divination through reflection. In dreams, mirrors symbolize self-recognition, but not always self-image. The oracle is in your behavior. Do you avoid the mirror or approach it or see something unexpected? The mirror is collective. Carl Jung, collective unconscious. Your response reveals what part of you is asking to be witnessed. And that's her Instagram, teaching women how to use dreams as oracles, bee, serpent, wolf, her story, where intuition meets instinct, and the dreams with wolves. Substack, yes, actually, I wanted to share the Substack article. It just hit me. The Her Story Archive, The Hive and the Womb, A Doorway to Dreaming, Lineages of Nectar and Scales, and all links. And that's her page. Before goddesses had temples, women learned from wolves. Where is the link between wolves and women? Awakening the lineages of great mothers. Your wilderness didn't disappear, it was domesticated. Law didn't begin on stone, it began in the womb. Jesus was not the first savior of the world, he was only the latest edition. Money is evil, the church taught you that. The history of Hag, before Hag was an insult, it named the woman who walked the hedge between worlds. Amazons were not Greek or white. You know the word witch? Not the names that came before it. They said the labyrinth hid a monster, but it hid the mother. Why did they call mother a monster? They used to burn women for interpreting dreams. Now they just comment. Homie, you aren't supposed to dream. Dreams are spirit world trying to involve themselves in your conscious life. Don't deserve our attention. History isn't truth, yeah. If news is full of lies, just imagine how much history we have been told a lie. History isn't truth, it's interpretation posing as fact. They burned the libraries. Yeah, and they built Google. The Inquisition called it fate. It was a 500-year theft of women's land. The church banned books for 400 years and it only ended in 1966. So, like, 1966. Oh, so since 1566 to 1966, books banned. What's going on? The book that made hatred of women holy. To the church, wearing amber was enough to convict a woman. Oh, yes, I love this. Before weird meant strange, it was the name of the fate goddess they feared. Every myth is called a story, except the ones written in holy books. Those are treated as history. Most people think Haden meant godless, but it was the church word for women they could not control, which was the name they gave to women who would not need. The sin wasn't using magic, the sin was being a woman. The witch hunts never ended, they just moved to the comment section. Oh, interesting. Many speak of motherhood as the highest initiation a woman can experience, but what about the woman who can't or choose not to have children? I don't believe birth is the only way a soul is initiated into love. There are millions of children already here waiting to be chosen, waiting to be loved. To love a child you didn't physically birth into the world, to choose them as your own beyond resemblance or lineage, is also an initiation of the highest kind. It asks you to look past the mirror of self and into the heart of oneness. It's not instinct, it's conscious love, chosen, intentional, expensive. Being spiritual doesn't automatically make someone a conscious or intentional parent. Each path into love and responsibility will be different. Some are called to raise children, some to mother the world itself. Both matter deeply. I'm not judging at either part. I just want to name the truth that both are divine. Neither makes you more or less of a woman. Motherhood isn't only biological, it's energetic. It's the impulse to nurture life in whatever form it takes. Some of us mother ideas, some of us mother communities, some of us mother the earth herself, and some mother children not born from our bodies but from our hearts. Maybe the highest initiation isn't about giving birth, but in how we honor the life already here. Well, whatever I share, my point is that it all connects. To me, it's like I am just like my heart is the center or the essence, the core, the soul. Similarly, I feel like I'm at the center of the circle, and whether it's Santos Bonacci, whether it's her, whether it's the Twitchy Witch, Joseph Campbell, Alan Watts, like everything is connected, interrelated. Or whether it's stellar theology and Masonic astronomy book. Make sense? Okay. So this is her website, and I just wanted to share these words. Awakening lineages of the Great Mother. She called herself an angel and wandered the world from girlhood till death. She lived every kind of life and dreamed every kind of dream. She was wild in her wandering, a drop of free water. She believed only in her life and in her dreams. She called herself an angel, and her god was beauty. Roman Paine. Okay? Dreaming threads, bee, serpent, wolf. Okay? That's it. And now, yes, coming to the foundation back, a living archive on her story, dreams, forgotten feminine lineages, unfiltered notes, thoughts, and the kind of receipts that challenge the human story, part research, part rebellion. So it's Substack, and this is what I wanted to share today. Okay. Hmm. Oops. Now, going back. Pagan was never a religion. It was a word for people who refused to leave the land. This is what caught my eyes. A relief with market scene, 2nd century CE, marble museum, Ostinis and Ostia. Most people think pagan names a belief system. It never did. It named people who lived outside control. What the word actually meant. In classical Latin, paganus meant someone of the pagus, a district, a countryside, jurisdiction. a rural zone outside the city walls. It described where someone lived, not what they worshipped, not what they prayed, not what gods they named. To be paganist was to be local, rooted of a place. This is why Latin texts use paganus interchangeably with words like rusticus and ruralis. It was not a spiritual itself, it was a social location. Oops. And more importantly, it was a location outside administration. The meaning most people never hear. Before Christianity used paganism religiously, Roman military culture had already given it another meaning civilian. In Roman usage, a paganist was someone who was not enlisted, not sworn, not commanded, not under military discipline. This distinction matters more than the most modern discussions ever acknowledged. Because Christianity didn't spread as a folk religion first, it spread as a dominating organized institution. When language reorganizes power, as Christianity gained imperial backing, it adopted military metaphors aggressively. Believers were framed as milites Christi, soldiers of Christ. Faith became allegiance, conversion became enlistment, obedience became virtue. And once the language took hold, the word paganist changed the function. If Christians were soldiers, then everyone else was civilian. If the church was an army, then those outside it were unaligned. If salvation required enlistment, then refusal became threat. The word didn't change overnight. It slid, or it slid. From rural to civilian to outsider to enemy. From rural to civilian to outsider to enemy. Rural to civilian, then outsider enemy. This is how language colonizes without announcing itself. Why the countryside mattered so much, Christianity took hold first in cities. This wasn't accidental. Cities held courts, tax system, bishops, archives, roads, power. Cities could be governed. The countryside could not be governed. Rural life followed different laws. Land inheritance, seasonal obligation, kinship memory, customary right. Authority lived in households, not institutions. Knowledge lived in bodies, not books. And crucially, women held much of it. What persisted outside the city walls? Outside the reach of bishops, and councils, rural communities continued practices that had nothing to do with resistance and everything to do with continuity. Women oversaw birth and death. Dreams were consulted for guidance. Ancestors were honored at graves and thresholds. Plants were gathered and prepared as medicine. Seasonal rites marked time, fertility, and survival. None of this required a priest. That was the problem. Church writers didn't complain merely because villagers named other gods. They complained because villagers didn't need them. When local becomes dangerous. By late antiquity, church authors begin using paganus polemically, not to debate theology, but to mark disobedience. Country people are described as stubborn, women as superstitious, ritual as backward, dreaming as illicit, healing as suspect. A word that one named place becomes a word that polices belonging. Become a word that polices belonging. What had meant rooted becomes primitive. What had meant ancestral becomes sinful. What had meant local becomes heretical. This is not a coincidence, it is a strategy. The pattern you can't unsee once you see it. The linguistic moves repeats across Europe. Eden once meant of the head. Hag once meant hedge worker. Weird once meant fate itself. Pagan once meant rural civilian. Each word began as a neutral descriptor tied to land, fate, feminine authority. Each is later recorded as moral failure. First, the word names what lies outside control, then it is saturated with fear, then history pretends that fear was always there. Why belief was never the issue? The church didn't first ask, "What do you believe?" It asked, "Who governs you?" To remain paganist was not to reject Christ, it was to remain unadministered. It was to keep seasonal law instead of written law, to trust local memory over distant authority, to orient life around land rather than doctrine. Belief came later, control came first. Why this matters now? When you hear the word pagan, you are hearing the echo of boundary. City versus countryside, institution versus body, hierarchy versus memory. You are hearing a word that once meant we lived differently. Not better, not worse, differently. And that difference threatened empires and still does. What they couldn't erase, the countryside remembered, not as ideology, as practice. The body remembered, the seasons remembered, the dreams remembered, because memory rooted in land doesn't disappear when renamed. It waits. And here is the part they never planned for. The same forces that once labeled rural people as pagany are now collapsing. Central authority is no longer trusted. Embodied knowledge is returning. Dreams are consulted again. Cycles matter again. Women are remembering what they carry. The word didn't survive because it was preserved. It survived because the way of life it named never died. That's the best part of her source notes and further reading. Latin Dictionary, Oxford, and so yes, that's it. Her other writings, okay, this is law. Women's were the keepers of memory. Yeah, that's it.